Welcome to Success Theory. And in this episode, I'm very happy to share with you a recent podcast that I was on. The J Anxious podcast had me on their fourth episode, and Jason, who runs the podcast, and I had a great conversation around Stoicism. The J Anxious podcast is a podcast that focuses on people getting over struggles in their life. It's a little bit based around anxiety, hence the name J Anxious. But Jason's podcast does touch on many other areas of self-improvement and personal development. In this 40 minutes or so, Jason and I had a great conversation, diving deep into the world of Stoicism. He was tapping into my knowledge on the subject. Obviously, if you followed me here on YouTube or over my Twitter page, My Success Theory, or if you know about my guide, Tactical Stoicism, you obviously know that I talk about this ancient philosophy quite a lot. This next 40-minute long conversation is just the audio, so I will put up a couple of pictures or just one picture of Jason's logo and my own, so you can have something at least to watch over the next 40 minutes or so. If you have any comments or any questions at all, please put them in the comments below. Also, I will put all the links over to Jason's podcast and the J Anxious podcast, where you can listen to his other episodes, which are all fantastic, and I hope you check them out. Well, thanks very much for watching this little intro, and I hope you enjoy the next 40 minutes or so of episode 4 of the J Anxious podcast. Make it a good one.
Welcome everyone to the J Anxious podcast. Welcome back to episode 4 of the J Anxious podcast. I am here with Stephen Timoney from Canada. He is here today to talk to us about stoicism, mindset, and leadership. You can find him on Twitter at My Success Theory. You can find him at his website, yoursuccesstheory.com, and on YouTube at Success Theory. Stephen is 41 years old. He is the creator of Your Success Theory. He has spent over 10 years working in retail and high-end commission sales before becoming a project manager in the corporate insurance world. Taking a massive leap in industry, Stephen implemented strategies to grow from a minimum wage worker to finding success, earning over 6 figures in a corporate environment. This shift was a smooth transition due to the systems that he created. He was able to uncover his path to success. By following this path, he was able to overcome substantial changes in his life. It's his mission to help you face similar challenges in your life and discover the hidden secrets to your success theory. Stephen, welcome to the show. Thanks for being on.
Hey, man. Thanks very much. Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
No problem. So, 41 years old in Canada, originally from Ireland. You want to take us through that a little bit, please?
Yeah, originally from Ireland. Grew up just outside Belfast, small town called Bangor. And then spent the 90s growing up in Ireland, post all the, during and post all the stuff, but we'll not talk about that in this podcast. And then I went to university in the north of England, did a sort of standard business degree. I think I didn't know what I wanted to do, so just went to school, did something that, thought was going to work out well for me, did a business degree, spent a number of years living and going through my party years, as I described them in the north of England, before taking the leap about 10 years ago to move out to Vancouver here in Canada. And that was probably one of the best decisions I've ever done in my life. Moved out here, met my wife, and had a very successful last 10 years, sort of really creating an ideal life for myself. And things are just stepping on from there.
That's awesome. So what made you choose Canada over, let's say, the States, or just moving down to England, or staying in Europe? What made you choose Canada?
Well, Canada is easier for somebody from Britain to get into because it's part of the Commonwealth. America can be quite difficult to get into, so I hear. I'm not an immigrant specialist, but the other point to that was my brother actually had already moved out here, so it's one of those kind of family things.
Okay.
He had moved out here. He actually met a girl in the UK from Vancouver, and they had moved out 4 or 5 years earlier. And then I came out for a holiday in April, and Vancouver is one of these like magical cities. You have to see it to believe it. I came out in April one year, and the snow was still in the mountains, but it was kind of nearly summer weather for Ireland, like 20 degrees during the day. And I went up the mountain one day, snowboarded for a little bit, and then came back down. I was in shorts, flipping burgers with my brother on his balcony of a nice house, drinking beers. And I was like, what am I doing living in England? What am I doing living in dark, grey, depressing United Kingdom, uh, where we get like 2 days of summer, especially in the north of England and in Ireland. So I literally just, within a couple of months, packed my bags, got a visa, came out on a closed visa, and somehow was able to navigate my way out of a 1 year student visa, even though I was past being a student, but I think they let you have it up to the age of 35 now. And I came out and I was able to stay, and it was a great decision.
Cool, man. Cool. So let's get into what it is that you do and what you teach. I found it extremely interesting in your ebook that you sell through Gumroad called Tactic Stoicism. You could get
Tactical
that
stoicism.
Tactical
Okay.
Stoicism. And you could get it through this podcast on Gumroad with the promotional code Stoic Path for 20% off of Tactical Stoicism and Stephen's teachings. So what got you into Stoicism? How did you land on that idea?
Well, through a number of things. I think everybody is kind of aware of at least one of the Stoics. I mean, everybody's probably aware of Marcus Aurelius. I mean, if any self-respecting man, or let's just say person, but typically a dude, if they haven't watched Gladiator, I don't know what they're doing with their life. Quality movie. Came out about 20 years ago. But Gladiator had that part at the start of the movie where Marcus Aurelius is talking to his son, and it talks about the four sort of main parts of Stoicism. And that was actually the first real time that I'd actually think, oh, what's this Stoicism about Marcus Aurelius? It's a name that you kind of heard through school, through history. And I'm not saying it was the movie Gladiator that got me into it 20 years ago, because it probably wasn't, but it was one of those sort of like pop culture references that you actually started to understand the name Marcus Aurelius. So it was floating around my mind for a little bit. It was a name that I recognized. And I just randomly came across picking up his book Meditations when I was, going through a sort of a difficult time, or coming out of a difficult time. And I was getting into personal development. And I noticed that Marcus Aurelius was getting used or quoted a lot. So I decided to start reading his book Meditations, and then that's how I really then started getting into Stoicism, because it really, his teachings in particular really do give you like systems or ideas of how to actually tackle difficult things in life.
So what at that time in your life, say 20 years ago, what was so difficult for you that you knew you had to make a change? Or when did you actually, maybe you knew you had to make a change? Because like, just for me, I knew that I had to make a change for 10 to 12 years, but I didn't make any changes. I just kept living the same way. So what was it in you that said, okay, Stephen, it's time to change. Let's adopt this Stoicism lifestyle, this idea of Stoicism, and see where it takes us.
Yeah. So the Stoic lifestyle I kind of lead now is a lot different than the first sort of steps that I took into it. I know that in my 20s, I repeated the same year probably 5 or 6 times. From about the age of 22, 23, from university up to the age of 28, 29 maybe. I felt like I just did the same thing, same parties, same people, same places, 5, 6 years in a row. And you knew you had to change. And that's when, coming to the end of my 20s, I actually moved to Canada. And it was all part of that journey. It was at that moment where I felt like I needed to change. And I hadn't quite discovered Stoicism in that time in the depth that I had done, but I had started thinking about doing things differently in life. And it wasn't really until I actually landed in Canada and I had sort of the fresh mindset, different world, minimum wage job, because I had to leave an okay job in the UK, and kind of start again with no money, no credit card. I arrived at $500 in my back pocket, so I was broke, basically living in a foreign country. It wasn't that foreign, because obviously English is the first language, so it's a lot easier to integrate yourself. And that's where the Stoic sort of mindset of control what you can control started to really come out during that time period. It was that lifestyle. It was almost like I was forced into being poor, but through that I discovered how to be more stoic and embrace it.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So the idea of control what you can control. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Well, that's one of the main components of Stoicism is the dichotomy of control. You only really control your actions, your thoughts. That's all you really do. You have very, very little your words as well. There's very little that you actually have control. And you don't control the weather. You don't actually really control your body because you can't control whether it gets an illness. You can't control what other people think of you. You can't control the world, the government, who's in charge, who's the president. You can't control any of that. And when you really drill down to what you can control, you're left with what I said there: your thoughts, your actions, and your words. And,
Right.
and that's the dichotomy of control. You've got to understand what is actually in my control, and that's a massive, massive part of Stoicism.
Yeah. And the way that I tie this idea into the realm that I'm in, the anxiety realm, is anxiety is just thoughts. Yeah. So initially, it's just thoughts that manifest more thoughts that manifest physical symptoms and emotional response. So getting in and controlling your thoughts is extraordinarily important. And to be upfront with you, I never really ran into Stoicism until I started speaking with you on Twitter. So um, can you get into a little bit how one would go about controlling their thoughts?
Well, it's not like you're a Jedi Knight. You just like pick up one book by Stoicism, or you're like that scene from Matrix where you read one Marcus Aurelius chapter and boom, Kung Fu. That's not how that's not how it works.
Right, right,
It's a constant struggle. I find that a lot of Stoicism is around setting your life up in a way that allows you to control more of what you control, like having morning routines, having evening routines, journaling. Big parts, big components of Stoicism. Even meditation in a sense, but meditation is slightly different. From the way that the ancient Greeks and Romans would describe meditation. They talk about going for walks. They talk about asking yourself good questions at the end of the day. So a lot of this these systems allow you to then dissect what you're thinking and what you're doing, and then reflect back on your actions. And then because you're measuring and reflecting back on your words and your actions, you're then able to improve. There's also a great Stoic exercise, which I think is a massive tool that I've used. It's called fear setting. I don't know if you've ever come across this,
I have
where
not. This is interesting. Go ahead.
so you basically ask yourself, say for instance, you want to start a business. I want to start a business where I'm selling some sort of trinket. And you ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? So you fear set what's the worst that could happen. And you write out a list of all the things that could go wrong. And then draw a line down the middle of the page. And then the other side of that list, you write how you can circumvent those fears. And 99.9% of the time, everything that you think's uh, going to be a failure is usually something you're making up an own barrier in your own mind. There's nothing that you can't overcome. And fear setting basically lays out all your negative thoughts, lays out all your fears, and then allows you to then quickly jot down easy ways around it. Or what would you do if this went wrong? If like all of a sudden if you put $5,000 into this business and you lost that $5,000, what would you do? And then you write out a plan of what you would actually do if that happened. Before I start the business, I'd save up money in the background. I'll do all these things where you can, and then you actually were able to build an actual plan that will get you from A to B, to C to D, because
Right,
you
right.
actually went through this fear setting exercise.
Wow, that's really good stuff. That's really good stuff. So, no, getting back to the beginning here, in the opening of your book, it says, you were underpaid and an angry young man. Where did that mindset come from?
I think that mindset comes from the fact that I was young and angry.
Yeah.
I can't really. I mean, growing up just outside Belfast. I don't know whether I want to speak for all Irish people, but I definitely feel like we're a little bit more of an angrier nation than most. I think there's a underlying aggression in Ireland, and whether it's down to the Troubles, whether it's down to Catholic guilt, I don't know if it's from the church.
You said it, not me.
Whatever that is. I definitely feel like I have that. Especially, I play a lot of football. I still play soccer, as you guys call football, and I actually still find that I'm always a very hot-headed, aggressive kind of player, and that's how I was brought up playing. So I'm sort of got that in me. Not like a lot of the Canadians are very calm about soccer, which I don't get. But anyway, back to what I was saying, that
Well, that's
angry.
probably why they're not very good.
No, they're not. They're terrible at it on the international stage. They're absolute. They're awful. Yeah, but they're getting better. We have Alphonso Davies now. Came through what the Vancouver Whitecaps, plays at Bayern Munich. He could be a world superstar. But anyway, yeah, back to being young and angry. I think I have always known that I have potential. I've always known that I can be better and do more. And I think in my 20s, I had a hubris of, I just got a degree. You know, it was a I say bog standard, that's an Irish term for like just a normal standard degree. It's a standard degree. I should be proud about it, but I think when I am, but when I went into the workforce, you're punched in the face with, we don't care about your degree. You're starting here at this level. And I think I always had this sort of anger at work where I felt like I should have already been at 2 or 3 levels up than the people around me. And then I was frustrated. And rather than doing the smart thing and doing the stoic thing and doing the right thing and burying your head into the work and delivering fantastic work for 6 months, 18 months, 2 years, and then seeing yourself skyrocket in your career, I did the opposite. I complained. I bitched. I got into arguments with people above me. I was petulant. I was arrogant, but I was talented. I was still good at my job. They still give me promotions in different areas, and I still had important tasks. But I look back at that time period, and that anger really slowed my growth. And it was a real, it's a real sort of negative. But also, I think some of that anger, if I'm being honest, probably came from the fact that I did not look after myself well in my 20s. I partied hard at the weekends. Every weekend, it was a weekend for me. It was, I go out on a Friday night, come back to the house on a Sunday, spend all my money, paycheck to paycheck, and then in the middle of the week on a Wednesday, when you're struggling to, you know, put a lunch together that's healthy for you, and you're using takeout food, or you're buying the cheapest possible option at a supermarket just to get you some sort of food, like tin soup or something, and a slice of bread, just to get through because you haven't got a lot of money. You're angry at not getting paid enough. You're angry that you're not getting the promotion. You're angry that you're not moving your life forward. And you don't blame yourself. You blame the circumstances. You blame the store manager that I work for. You blame the area manager you work for. You blamed everything else except for yourself. You blamed the things that are out of your control, and you didn't blame the things that are in your control. And I think that's where a lot of my anger came from at that age, when I was being paid sort of more minimum wage uh, money. It was a trap.
When you explain your story, it's absolutely parallel to my story. It's the same thing. When I started jobs in the beginning, I'm and 6 months into the job, I'm like, I should be running this shit, as opposed to, like you said, bury your head in the sand and do the work and grow by proving yourself. I just thought, this is so simple. Why isn't anybody running this in a better way, or anything like that? I completely understand where you're coming from on that idea. And I did the same thing. Me and my friends, 21 to, geez, 28, 29 years old, every single weekend, party as hard as we could, like there was nothing to do, paycheck to paycheck. And unfortunately for me, I had a gambling issue to throw in on top of all that stuff. So I never really came across money as being all that important. It was just a means to an end to keep doing what I wanted to do in the short term with no long-term plan. So, I mean, I completely understand where you're coming from, and I'm sure a lot of people who are listening to this are going to understand that as well. So moving on here, you chose 21 quotes for your book. Where did that come from, and which ones are your favorite?
Good question. There are so many quotes in Stoicism that you could get lost in it. There's, most of the key figures have a number of books, and a lot of the quotes that you see, on Twitter or Instagram, that someone puts them on out there in the world, they're just taking out of sentences, taking out of longer chapters and words. So there's a lot to digest when it comes to Stoicism. it was the main philosophy in Rome, just before Christianity, and just as Christianity was coming in. In fact, there's a history will show that actually the Christians took a lot of, because Italy is where Stoicism really was, the Roman Empire. A lot of Stoic ideas were actually rolled into the Bible. Because it was part of the culture. But that's for a different podcast and a different history lesson. But the reason why I picked those 21 quotes is no particular reason. They were just quotes that I decided to do some journaling on. They were quotes that I uh, decided to actually get into a bit more depth with. Not that they're my favorite quotes. Actually, my favorite Stoic quote ever isn't even in the book. I don't even think I mentioned it once in the book.
It's interesting.
Yeah, and that's by Epictetus. It's don't explain your philosophy, embody it. It's funny that I don't have that. I don't think I have it in there at all. I'd have to double check the whole guide, but I don't think I put that quote in there. And that is actually my number one. That's my number one, except for another quote that isn't to do with Stoicism, which is a W.C. Clement quote, I think, called "Small hinges." It says, "Small hinges swing big doors," which I just think it's a great idea about small things in life. But don't explain your philosophy, embody it, is my favorite quote, because I
Right.
think a lot of people in the world today talk about the game. Not a lot of people play the game.
Without question. So basically, he was saying in nice terms way back when he was around, that your words don't mean shit. It's all about action. So I agree with that 100%, because I used to think I knew everything and explained everything to everybody, but there I was, fat, unhappy, broke, and I didn't know anything. So that is a very good quote.
Yeah. But in the book, the one I would probably pick out for being my favorite is, it's a pretty straightforward one from Marcus Aurelius, that is about waste no more time arguing what a good person or a good man should be, just be one. And I think that it's a very, very straightforward quote about just do the right
Extremely
thing.
straightforward.
Just be a good person. Let's not get into arguments about what it is. Just be good. We all intrinsically know what good is for us. We know what a good person should do. So let's just do it. And I think it kind of leans into what I think Stoicism is. Everybody has a different opinion. I'm not going to give you like a university lecturer's idea of what Stoicism is, because I that's disconnected to me. I get disconnected when I read the actual lecturers, the people who who actually write the history of Stoicism. Yeah, there's always good information, but I find that you should find your own meaning for your philosophies that you follow in life. And for me, Stoicism is just simply doing the right thing. That is my main takeaway from this philosophy. You do the right thing in every situation to the best of your skills, knowledge, and abilities.
So you truly believe that people know what the right thing to do is in most circumstances, because you see a lot, especially on Twitter or any of the social media, do the right thing, do the right thing. And the right thing is usually the hardest thing to do. And that does make a lot of sense, because, the hardest thing to do would be to save your money as opposed to spend it. It would be to eat right as opposed to just eat whatever you want. It would be to sit on your couch and watch TV as opposed to going out and exercising and being active in the world. But I think since I've started making a lot of those kind of changes to my life, I believe that's the truth. And everybody, I agree with you. Everybody kind of knows that that's the right things to do. So,
Yeah.
um, just outstanding stuff. So, you know, uh, out of the quotes, or even in the ones in the book or not in the book, what are some that you live by? Obviously you live by the first one, your favorite one that you spoke of already, but are any that you really take to heart in there that you really make a focal point of on a daily basis?
Couple of them. There's one by Seneca. It's very famous. It's one of the most famous Stoic quotes. Is luck is when opportunity meets preparation. And I think that's a big one. That's a huge one for me, because it really says to us that luck is created by ourselves. We create luck by working, and then because we've worked, when an opportunity comes up, we can then shine. It's going back to the angry Steve, the angry young man, that he was angry, wasn't working. So when the opportunity came, he failed. he maybe dropped the ball at an interview or dropped the ball when he was given a important bit of work to do, because he wasn't actually really working. He was just complaining about wanting to be given the opportunity. Where Stoic Steve later in life has had quite. I've had a lot of promotions. I've been moved around. I've had a lot of fortune in the last 4 or 5 years within my corporate environments. A little bit longer than that, because Steve does the work. Steve focuses on ideas, reads books on leadership, does courses, does certificates, works on and stuff on the side with YouTube, Twitter, constantly learning, constantly growing. I've got better in front of camera. I can speak well in front of people. Opportunity comes, boom, knock it out of the park, home run. Because I was doing all that work in the dark. All that work in the shadow allowed me to shine in the light.
Right. So it seems to me like all of this Stoicism quotes and, the way that a Stoic would live his life, especially through all the study would be, you know, it all rolls into one thing. So live your life the way that you're supposed to live it, make the hard choices. Making the hard choices leads to, opportunities, and those opportunities lead you to, to leadership positions and so on and so forth. And it keeps you in a state of preparedness to be able to do the things that are going to be, not so easy for everybody else to do. And I think that's a fantastic way to go about it. And the mindset that needs to have for that is that no matter what, I'm going to do the right thing. The ethics involved in that, and I think if a lot of more people knew about this, we'd be in a little bit different world, especially with ethics and leadership, where those ideas they'll meet each other. So when it comes to the mindset of a Stoic, what would be important points in that?
I mean, if you're just starting out, I think important points to the mindset of the Stoic is to go back to what we said earlier about the things you control, your words, your actions, your thoughts. That's where it all starts. I also think a mindset to a Stoic is realizing what you want in life and then navigating, then shaping your life towards that. I mean, Stoics, if I can sort of go off a little bit here, people have this sort of idea, this modern term. If you say the word Stoic in a legal sense, it means somebody who maybe uh, is emotionless, doesn't show emotion, and is cold. And for me, that is completely at odds of what Stoicism is, because I feel like Stoicism, you need to be really in touch with your emotions. You need to be in touch with who you are so you can do the right thing. So a mindset of a Stoic isn't to be cold and emotionless. The mindset is to actually explore your emotions, explore why you're angry, explore why you're upset, explore why you're not doing so well in life. Do the fear setting exercise and try to like move yourself out of that rut. So that's the mindset is, you can set your life up to do the right thing and you can get great results from that.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Just sitting here listening to you think and think in a second, when you're done, uh, it would definitely change everything if you could definitely, change, take your mind and say, look, this is how I was living. This is how I need to live. What can I do? And then study the ethics behind it and study and then make your mindset, you know, that way. And when it comes to mindset, that was a really big hurdle for me to get over, was to even put myself out here on this podcast, or I'm sure it was something for you to put yourself on, YouTube and everything like that. Because the only reason why I was able to do that, my mindset was how genuine my story is, and how much I wanted to help people in my situation, because it's an awful life. For 25 years, it was an awful life. So the mindset for me was wrong, though. Partying, doing nothing, being anxious all the time, eating incorrectly. It was, I didn't care. I didn't give a shit about, whatever. And then, we all need to make that change. Luckily for me, my change came when, me and my fiance had our daughter. It was huge. You know what I mean? You don't have any children, but that's when the light bulb went on for me. So yeah, that's extremely important. So, moving on from all that, leadership, where do you think, where do you think you could adopt, and how long do you think that you need to practice this mindset of Stoicism, this theory of Stoicism, to find yourself in a leadership position, not only in like a corporate world or a business world, but just in general for people around you that may be struggling?
I would say that you could do, in the short term, you can flip your life around if you go hard in a year. I think in the long term, you're probably looking at a 5-year, 10-year plan.
Okay.
It's not. You get a lot of people that will sell courses like, change your life in 6 months. I don't believe in that stuff. I don't think that that's true, because I mean, yeah, you can, in a sense, you can get an income, but like if you're really adopting new mindsets, you're always going to have a thing called habit gravity. So when you take off from into a new habit or a new set of thinking or a new mindset, your old ways will always be pulling that back. They'll always be pulling that back down. And that habit gravity is really hard to escape, especially if you're coming from a dark place or a rut. If you're coming from that darker place or a rut, bad eating habits, bad fitness, bad emotional issues, partying a lot, you've got your environments are wrong because everybody who's in your friend circle does the same thing. It's normal for you to drink for 2 days in a row and party. That environment and those habits will always pull you back in. So where my light bulb wasn't a child, my light bulb was moving to Canada, because I completely broke out those environments. Now I moved to Canada, it's 10 years ago now, and in those 10 years I'm a completely different person. But it really kicked in for me probably after about 3 years of, or a bit less, of stoicism. I have seen a quite a trajectory jump for me. Obviously, I'm not just reading about stoicism. I read about leadership. I read about systems thinking. I have a game theory. I'm a project manager now, so obviously I've gone through and done project manager certificates. So there is a lot more things on top of it. It wasn't just like I read stoicism once and then boom, here I am. It's a continual coming back. I always have a Stoic book, but on the go. I always have it, whether it's Marcus Aurelius, whether it's a book by Ryan Holiday, whether it's a Seneca book, Epictetus book. I always have one in the morning where I have my coffee. I always have. I might not read it every day, but I always have a Stoic book to remind me of a quote, of a thought, every single day. I honestly believe, because I'm talking about my struggles and your struggles, and my whole thing, my success theory, and my website, your success theory. I honestly do believe that if you are looking to develop as a leader in life, picking up a copy of Marcus Aurelius Meditation, picking up a copy of one of Seneca's books, The Art of Living. No, that's Epictetus. Sorry, The Art of Living. One of Seneca's book, as well as Letters. It's a great book. Uh, you read those and you write the quotes out, and then you rewrite them how they affect you. You will actually be able to get, I think, stronger foundational ideas than buying a random off the shelf this month's hot personal development book. Because at the end of the day, a lot of personal development copies from these guys. These were for me, Stoicism is the original personal development philosophy, and that's why I'm really into it.
Yeah, and it sounds that way to me. So, okay, so we go out, we buy our books, we read our books, we write out our tweets. That is action.
Yeah.
But the real action is in the practice, right? So what would be the easiest way, or what would be the way that makes the most sense to put your learnings through Stoicism into action and to actually do something for you?
Two things that really changed my life, and I really got these ideas from Stoicism: journaling, meditation. I can't argue. I mean, it's no. There's no trick. There's no red pill. There's no blue pill. There's no, secret to it. Literally meditating for 20 minutes in the morning, trying to do it again 20 minutes at night before you go to bed, and journaling, writing out your ideas, talking about what you've done that day, talking in a journal. When you have a meeting goes wrong, writing in a journal after the meeting, being like, why'd that meeting go wrong? Why'd that phone call go wrong? I've had interviews, completely bombed them in my life, and I've then written out why that interview went wrong, and I will never, ever, ever make those mistakes again. I will not make those mistakes again, because I asked myself those questions, and that fear setting, that reviewing. The end of the day, Seneca talks about this in his book and his letters about setting your day up, that you review your day at the end of the day. thinking about these things. That's what Stoicism is, doing the right thing, making sure that you learn the lessons so the next time you're more prepared. So you're preparing, and then when you get the opportunity again, you appear lucky.
Yeah. So it also does have a lot to do with systems and habits then as well.
Yeah.
You gotta incorporate those habits daily, and that generally takes what, 21 days is the generally the
They say
sweet.
21, 60 for me, I think, is the actual sweet spot for life changing. That it's going to stick with you for life. But yeah, every morning, I mean, if you were to show old Steve from five, about maybe 7 years ago, and maybe 10 years ago, and show him my daily routine, he wouldn't even know who I was. And a lot of that comes down to the Stoic: getting up in the morning, glass of water, sitting on the sofa, meditating, a little bit of journaling, a little bit of reading, then attack the day. And that is the foundation of a successful life. I don't think I know anybody who isn't really successful that doesn't have that type of morning routine. Whether it's going to the gym and getting that meditation in the gym, going for a walk with the dog, everybody who's successful has this sort of morning thing that they do. Now, it's not all like deep meditation and gongs and weird woohoo stuff. It's priming, as Tony Robbins calls it. It's priming yourself for the day. And some people just do it naturally. There are people in the world that don't even know they do it because they get up in the morning, they go for a walk, take the dog for a walk. They don't look at their devices for 2 hours. That's how they feel. Let's just do it. They don't plan to do it. That's just what they did. And that's how they're successful. But some of us that are coming, again, we're going back to the dark place. The people who relied on dopamine, the people who watch too much Netflix, eat too much ice cream, smoke, all this stuff. They're so addicted to dopamine that it's harder for us to then create those spaces, especially in the morning. It was really hard for me to get into meditation in the morning because it was hard for me, first of all, to start getting up at 6 a.m. in the morning, 5 a.m. in the morning, to knock that back, because I'd sleep into 8, 8:39, go to work for 10. I was a get out of bed in the morning, have a shower, run out the door in 5 minutes kind of guy. So it does take time, but it's worth the time because it will change your life.
So how long is a general meditation session for you in the morning when you get your morning routine going, and how long do you meditate generally at night?
I have a couple of different clocks on my phone. I have a timer set up. So if I've I have a 10-minute one, I have a 25-minute one, I have a 41, and depending on what time it is during the day, what I have to do in the morning, I will select which one I want to do. Sometimes I go longer, sometimes I go shorter. Nighttime, it's more about stepping away from your devices for about half an hour before going to bed. Now, sometimes I can be bad at that because of Twitter. uh, you're there, you're in there, and I still make mistakes. I'm not perfect. And my nighttime routines could be better. My morning routines are pretty much in lockdown because they're solid. But my nighttime routine, the perfect night for me, and I probably do this, half the week. The weekends it gets a bit loose. Why not? It's the weekend, and but about half an hour before you go to bed, 40 minutes, no devices. I do a little bit of breathing. I will lie in my bed strategically a certain way. I will look up at my ceiling. I will not go to sleep. First of all, I will start talking about affirmations in my head. And might sound stupid, but I start thanking the day. I thank you for the day. Thank you for that. That was good. Thank you for that. I actually I just don't go to bed and be like, oh, nighttime, sleep time, this dream. I don't do that. I actually strategically think about what happened that day. It's like that what Seneca's saying. I used to do it with a journal. I do have a journal beside my bed. I don't use it every night. I can go a week or so without using it, but I have a journal everywhere where I sit regularly. I have a journal and a pen in case the moment comes up. So again, systems, setting yourself up so you can have the opportunities to do that. But your morning and your evening routines are a part of Stoicism, but also a massive part of anybody who wants to go on a success journey. It's a huge success theory.
Right. I agree with you 100%. I definitely need to get my meditation routine under control. I I'm not that good at. Now, when you say the breathing, do you follow anybody in particular's breathing technique? I'm a Wim Hof guy.
Yeah,
I like Wim Hof's breathing exercises.
I was big into Wim Hof a while ago. I got into yoga a little bit. Moving to the west coast of Canada kind of happens. It's a big yoga city, but I don't really do that too much anymore. However, I do understand the breathing technique, in through the nose, out through the mouth, and slowly doing. I think with anxiety as well, you're breathing for a certain number of seconds, in, and then holding your breath for a certain number of seconds, and then breathing out, or just doing in for a certain number of seconds and then out with the mouth. I do that regularly throughout the day, not just when I'm meditating.
Yeah, that idea was brought up by somebody who doesn't have general anxiety disorder.
Okay.
That is,
I read
maybe
that
it was
somewhere.
proven. Maybe it was proven in a lab somewhere that somebody could breathe in and hold their breath for 2 seconds and let go for 7 seconds,
Yeah.
and that makes you calmer. But that was probably never studied during a severe panic attack. Believe me when I tell you. Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I just read it as something that
No,
helps a bit.
look,
Yeah.
I've read it a million times, and I've tried it 2 million times, but
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
no, no. Whatever works for you. I'm not saying don't try it, but I'm saying
Yeah, but with the breathing, it's just being. Let's remove it from like helping with helping with something, but just it helps with just bringing awareness. Sometimes I remember going to a fitness class once, and the instructor was actually talking about breath work, and he said something that stuck with me for years. When you're putting a seatbelt on in your car, or when you're putting your shoe on, notice whether you're breathing in or out. And I'll guarantee you, when you do that today, the next time you go and put your shoes on, or you go to reach for something, or you go to put your seatbelt on, I'm guarantee you're not breathing. You're holding your breath. And now, because I heard that, every time I put my shoes on to walk my dog in the morning, I actually purposely breathe in and breathe out as I'm putting my shoe on. And that has made me more aware of, like, when I'm at my desk at work as well, to breathe in and breathe out when I'm feeling a bit, got lots of emails, notifications going off. Just like, just it helps, but it does, or well, for me, it did take years to integrate as a habit.
breathing is extraordinarily important, and you know, maybe for another day I could get into. I bought a breathing program off of somebody in Twitter, and it was actually pretty interesting, but it goes pretty quirky quick. But I think there's a lot to it.
Yeah.
It was something about how long you can hold your breath while walking at a pace is a major indicator of of disease, something or other like that. But
Yeah.
so
Interesting.
so we're going to be wrapping up the show here in a minute or two. But just give the audience an idea of how they could get started adopting this mindset. We already went over the books and how to get started, but like, give us the bare bones of where you get started on this.
Well, first of all, you can pick up my guide, Tactical Stoicism. There we go. There's the bare bones.
20% off with Stoic Path.
Stoic path. Yeah. And I think that's where it begins with, and I talk about this in the book, and I think it's a great way to finish off, actually, because it's the name of my newsletter as well. If you sign up for the book, you'll become part of my newsletter. And study, practice, teach. That is the core. This is an idea that I developed myself from Stoicism. It's from sort of different ideas I was able to read. I talk about it in the guide, but study, practice, teach. It's a cyclical kind of stacked theory that they all lean into each other. First of all, you start with a study. Go out and buy a book or whatever you want to get into. It doesn't have to be Stoicism. It could be anything that you want to do in life. You study it, but make sure you're practicing it. Make sure that when you do something new in life, that you actually have somewhere that you're practicing this thing. Don't read stuff. Don't bring on knowledge just for the sake of it. Bring on knowledge when you actually need it. So if you're looking to become a better leader, make sure you actually have people to lead or lead yourself. Make sure you set the depth so you can do that. And then teach. Now, a lot of people be like, well, what do you mean teach it to people? Teaching isn't necessarily talking to somebody like in a classroom or
Yeah,
writing an
preaching.
ebook.
Right.
Preaching. But teaching can be as simply as you embodying your ideas. You're teaching yourself. You're teaching. You're showing other people your example just by showing up and being a leader in life. Like as we said earlier with the Epictetus quote, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." That's teaching, because you're embodying your philosophy and you're teaching other people around you. Oh, look at this guy. He's able to develop these skills. He's able to do this work. He's able to complete it, and you're able to teach people through your example. So where to start? I would start with that system: study, practice, teach.
I love it. I love it. Excellent. So that was our time today with Stephen Timoney. I'm sorry, Timoney.
Timoney,
Um,
yeah.
Tactical Stoicism on Gumroad, on Twitter at My Success Theory, on www.yoursuccesstheory.com, and YouTube Success Theory. Again, Gumroad, 20% off Tactical Stoicism with the code Stoic Path. Steven, real quick, UFC 258 tonight, 257, 258. Conor McGregor, you're an Irish guy.
Yeah.
Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier, who you got?
I don't know a lot about Dustin Poirier. To be fair, I think Conor, if he takes it seriously, he'll win. If he's there for a paycheck, he'll lose.
He is not there for a paycheck. I'm a major fan of the UFC. I am going to be up front with you. I am not a major fan of Conor McGregor, but he looks in the best shape of his life. He looks
He's looking
focused.
mean.
He looks focused.
The weigh-in was interesting because he was very calm and actually polite, which was not that threw me a little bit because that's not Conor. But
well, he looked that way too against Donald Cerrone, and he knocked 7 shades of shit out of him. So I mean, I don't like Dustin's chances tonight, even though I'm a big Dustin Poirier fan. It doesn't look too good. I'm definitely looking forward to tonight's action. But in closing here, thank you so very much for being on the show. It was absolutely fascinating, in my opinion, and a lot to think about moving forward for all of us with, mindset issues and things like that. And anybody who thinks they're on the right path, maybe they're not. Thank you so much for being on here. Anything you want to add before we close it out today?
Thanks very much for having me. It's been great, good chatting with you. I think the experience of going through a sort of dark period in your life, I honestly believe that the best Stoics in life were once hedonists. So it
could be true. Yeah,
it could be true. I've come across a lot of people who have gone through troubling times, and I usually find that the people who have the best systems in life and actually push to really great success usually have a good dark story.
Great. Fantastic. Well, again, thank you very much. Again, at My Success Theory on Twitter, Success Theory on YouTube, and yoursuccesstheory.com. Check him out. His stuff is excellent. His book is fantastic. Stoic Path, Tactical Stoicism. Thank you very much for your time today, Steve, and have a great day.
Cheers, man. Thank you.